Son? Okay. Shh. Okay, we're in the middle of the din of Kriyas HaTorah. Okay, last thing we learned about how to make the bracha and all that stuff. Now, what happens if there's no kohen in the shul? Okay? So the din is, al pi din, what's called the Sparda Chavila, which means, halachically, you can give anybody else. But in halacha it says, if there's no kohen and you call a Levi, even though you don't have to, but the Alter Rebbe says in Berch Samazon, the expression, Yarich Yamim, you live long. There are poskim that bring it down even about Kriyas HaTorah. So if there's no kohen in shul, halachically you don't have to give a Levi, but if you do, you live long. Now, what happens if you called up a kohen and he's not there? He thought he was there and he walked out. So you can't call the next guy, so you have to get somebody else instead. A Yisrael has to come up, or a Levi has to come up. So you can't call him up by his name, because if you call the next guy up by his name, people say, oh, what happened to the other guy? He's probably not a real kohen. So therefore, if you called up a kohen by mistake, or a Levi by his aliyah by mistake, and they're not there, so somebody else goes up for the aliyah, but you don't call him up. He just says the bracha. But what happens if a kohen wasn't there, you call up a kohen and he's not there, but his son is there, and the son's bar mitzvah. So then you could call up the son by the name, because if he's a kohen, then his father's a kohen. So then it's not a question of maybe something's wrong with the father, because if the kid's a kohen, obviously the father's a kohen. So again, if you called up a kohen by mistake, he's not there, somebody else goes up to the aliyah without a name. But if the kohen's son was there, or for that matter, maybe even the kohen's father was there, whatever, so then you can call him up by his name. The same thing, what happens if a kohen Levi, you called him up, but he's in the middle of davening? So then you could call up somebody else by name. Why? Because people see he's davening. He's in shul, he's davening. So they'll understand that there's nothing wrong with him.
Does it say the reasoning if the guy's not there?
No, because if he's davening, people see he's there and they see the reason why he's not going up. If you call him up and he's not there, people will think, oh, he walked out because he's a disqualified kohen. So you don't do it.
The Arichas Yamim is only for the Gabbai?
I don't know. The Alter Rebbe says, Yarich Yam. Who does it mean? Only the Gabbai, the whole Kihila? I don't know. I never saw that anywhere. What? Whatever. Okay, next. If there was... Huh? Then you can't call next to my name either. When he announced it? There's another issue involved. We have two psychiatrists in the shul. Maybe he should see one of them. Next, what happens if... what happens if you called up, you thought there was no kohen. You call up a Yisrael, and then you realize there's a kohen here. No. It's only too late if he says Baruch Atah Hashem of the bracha, not Baruch Hu. If he says Baruch Atah Hashem, then it's too late. But let's say you called up a Yisrael instead of the kohen, but then you realize the kohen's in the shul, or somebody told me this guy's a kohen. So the kohen goes up, he's called up, and the Yisrael waits for the Yisrael aliyah and he gets it. Or if it's a Levi, he waits for the Levi aliyah and he gets it. Okay? But once he said Baruch Atah Hashem, once he said not Baruch, but the bracha Baruch Atah Hashem, it's too late. Then Yisrael does the aliyah and that's it. What? You don't do it. Once he's called up and he said David's name, we already started the aliyah, so it's a different story. Okay, next. Also, you're not allowed to call up, and this is very practical a lot of times during the week. Okay, but anyway, let me say first halachos. You're not allowed to call up two brothers in a row for an aliyah. Whether they're paternal brothers, maternal brothers, same father or the same mother, you're not allowed to call up two brothers in a row. Why? Because of ayin hara. The same thing halachically, you're not allowed to call up a father and a son, or a father and a grandson if the grandson is the father's son's son. In other words, if there's a grandfather, daughter, grandson, then you can call up the grandfather and the grandson one after another. But if it's a paternal grandson, meaning the father's then the son and the grandson, so then you don't call up a grandfather and a grandson in a row together because of ayin hara. Even if they don't care, if they say we don't care, it doesn't matter. Now, because it's not the same ayin hara as if it's a son. A son is more noticeable that it's the child's father. There's a story with Alter Rebbe and Tzemach Tzedek. The Alter Rebbe had an aliyah, and right afterwards he called it Tzemach Tzedek, because it was his grandson through the mother. But in halacha it says for the father you can't do it. Now, but that rule doesn't apply if there's two Sefer Torahs. In other words, let's say Rosh Chodesh, right? I mean, not Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh. And you give a son the last aliyah, and then the next Torah, because it's a break, so then there's no ayin hara, then you can call up a father and a son or two brothers, one after another. But the problem is, let's say you have a kid's bar mitzvah, right? And you have, so you have, let's say, and brothers, I'll tell you where you have a problem. Twins, bar mitzvah. Okay? So now it's on a Monday or Thursday, let's say, right? So if there's no kohen, let's say, so you give one kid, but you can't give the kid the next aliyah. And then you can't give the father an aliyah either in between the two. So basically, if that's the case, the only one that can get aliyah is the two boys. You can't give the father and the son. Even if the father is yahrzeit, let's say, and the kid's bar mitzvah, it can't give an aliyah like that under no matter circumstances. Huh? What?
The same rule apply in terms of long episode. You have one Sefer Torah, but one gets the shvi and the other one gets mafkid.
In the same Sefer Torah? Same Sefer Torah you're not allowed to. What?
You have a basic kohen out of the room first?
Can you send the kohen out of the room? If which case?
In the case where you want to go get all boys later.
And you have a kohen in the shul. So the minig is you ask the kohen to please leave, and you do bimkom kohen, but the kohen can't come back. When you tell the kohen to get out, he can't come back until the guy says Baruch Atah Hashem. Because again, we learned if the guy didn't make the bracha and didn't say Baruch Atah Hashem yet, and the kohen's there, you have to give the kohen. So if the kohen's coming back, he can't come back until the guy says Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, so to speak, because then the kohen doesn't get the aliyah.
Even in that situation, the father still can't get.
Father cannot get an aliyah.
Twins are kohanim.
Huh?
Twins are kohanim.
Or Levium. Or Levium.
Right.
So you have a problem. The problem is if you have twins that are two kohanim or two Levium on Shabbos. Okay? And so you can have normally, let's say, kohen one and one mafter. What happens if the kids are not part, they can't say mafter. They can't do haftarah. So what do? So if it's not a Chabad shul where you had aliyahs, so then it's not a problem, because the last aliyah before mafter was called acharei. If you have those aliyahs, additional aliyahs, you can give a kohen or a levi. So then if you have a bar mitzvah in the non-Chabad shul where they had aliyahs, so you give one kid kohen and then one kid acharei, okay? Or one kid levi and one kid acharei. But you have the din, it's not for today, we'll discuss. There's a whole din. It happens, by the way, pretty often. A family goes away for Shabbos, okay? And they're all kohanim or they're all leviim. So what do you do with the aliyahs and Shabbos? Let's say you have 10 people, okay? 10 people are leviim, okay? Let's say you have parents, kids, and then grandkids, yeah? And they're going away away for Shabbos. And they're all kohanim or leviim. This happens pretty often, by the way. They go away for Shabbos, you have kohanim or leviim. And then you have, let's say, one Yisrael, or two Yisraelim. There's a whole process in halacha how you run those aliyahs. If there's one Yisrael, what do you do? If there's two Yisrael, what do you do? If there's three Yisraelim, what do you do? It's a very interesting thing, it's not for tonight. But how to work out the aliyahs, that you should be able to work it out. Because normally, a Levi is not allowed to get any other aliyah if he's not a Levi. And a Kohen is not allowed to get any other aliyah besides Kohen. So, that's that situation. Now what happens? What? When? The last. Yeah, because they add aliyahs. Okay, so the last one of the adding, they can give a...
Or they give him the fifth one or fourth one.
No, it's 7.
Kohen in the middle?
Yeah. But they announce that he's a Kohen, but they call him to the Torah.
What about giving the 7?
Have enough problems with Ashkenazic tradition. To go to the Sephardic tradition, I don't know. I'm not saying anything. Okay, now what happens? The guy gets an aliyah in a shul and then he comes into another shul, or he davened by one minyan, then he stayed for the second minyan, he got an aliyah again by the second minyan. So it's not a problem because he makes the brachas and it's not an issue at all. What? So you mean twice in the same kriya?
That's what we had.
Yeah. If I told you to do it, I told you to do it. The reason why I told you to do it, because it says in halacha that Rabbi Nosson Adler, who was the Rebbe of Chassam Sefer Rebbe, was a Kohen, and he used to get Kohen and Mafter every week. He used to get Kohen and Mafter every week. So obviously in the same kriya you're allowed to get an aliyah twice. But that you can have Simchas Torah b'chal, different halachos of aliyahs. You do a lot of things different Simchas Torah than you would normally during the year.
Oh, but if you have 10 people and two Kohen and 2 Levim, then you don't have enough aliyahs. Someone has to get it again.
Yeah, but there's a way of, like I said, if you have, let's say, 10 people and 2 Kohanim and 2 Levim, right? So there's a way of giving out aliyahs that you'll be allowed to do it on Loch, but that's a different story.
What do you call Kohen?
So Irsha Kol HaKoyanim. It's a Gemara. Irsha Kol HaKoyanim. It says that there's Siman Shulchan Aruch. So then you give Kohen and then Kohen and then Kohen and Kohen. If you have only Levim, the problem is what messes us up. If you have, let's say, 10 Koyanim and 1 Yisrael. So he now messes it up because what do you do? Now what happens if you have a place, a situation which happens often? You have a Kohen, but you don't have a Levi. It happens by the first minyan a bunch of times, right? You have a Kohen, but you don't have a Levi. So who gets the second aliyah? So the din is, the Kohen gets the second aliyah, and he makes the brachas again. But there are opinions, not so simple. There are opinions...
Same Kohen or another Kohen?
Same Kohen. You're not allowed to have another Kohen. Another Kohen means the first Kohen wasn't a Kohen. No, you can't do that. No, but there are shittas, the Minchas Elazar, and other people hold, you should ask the Kohen to leave. But it's not done. But that's because most poskim say you can do it, you don't have to do that. The Meram Shik, it brings down from the Meram Bendit that you should ask the Kohen to leave. The Minchas Elazar held like him, that you ask the Kohen to leave, but most people, the minig is that they don't ask him to leave and they give him both aliyahs.
Is there any opinion that says that if there's one Kohen, he would say the bracha and he read 2 aliyahs?
No, because you need 7 aliyahs, or 3 aliyahs. So you can't read 2 aliyahs, then you don't have, what?
Is there sometimes they say if a person's traveling, they give an aliyah before they travel?
Yeah.
So is it enough to use that as an excuse to ask a Kohen to leave, so if you need more aliyahs, or is that, well, at what stance, at what point can you say that it's easy? Because I know it's not such a good idea to always send out the Kohen.
If there's a need, you could do it.
Is that a need?
If the Kohen doesn't mind, if the Kohen minds and he's not meichel, you can't do it.
If he's meichel, okay. If he's meichel, can he still be there, or yes, he's still
If he's meichel, technically he could be there, but the minig is, in halacha says he should walk out.
Even
Yeah. Mach ich in so ein Zimmer, mach ich bei mein Kim Schwlag, Alter, wir können gar schön mit das,